How different would the world be if Nelson Mandela did not exist? Through the years, I've heard bits and pieces of history about Nelson Mandela, and not only his ideas regarding freedom, equality, and democracy, but also his focus on making the world better through organizations. I look at our world today, and I see people focusing on creating change. And I believe a large example of this change was created by Nelson Mandela's ideas. His ideas would focus on being for the people, and not only self-centered. Nelson Mandela's ideas and the power he put into implementing policy made him one of the greatest leaders in the last century. His role as the hero of South Africa may stand the test of time. Nelson Mandela believed in equality for the African American race in South Africa. His path he had to take to get things done was not easy, but he stayed true to the people and fought back against the crime the government was continuing to commit. Nelson Mandela was popular in the black community as a leader of a black political party. This party was fighting to regain the rights for the black, and it worked at just getting a voice out to start a movement. Once this movement started, they had strikes and public arrangements. These arrangements were usually led by Nelson, and it caused him to gain popularity. Secondly, Nelson Mandela was very strongly against the apartheid. He believed in a free, equal South Africa, where everyone had a right, and nobody is believed to be unworthy just because of the color of his or her skin. During this time period, the government was very tyrannical, corrupt, and very Caucasian-centered. This not only caused a struggle for the blacks, but created a movement. Nelson Mandela was a student at a law school during the years of the apartheid. Once he graduated, he opened his own firm. He represented cases for the blacks and represented to go against the apartheid. This firm would start a long future in fighting against the apartheid. On June 12, 1964, Nelson Mandela was sentenced to a life sentence in prison. He was sentenced on the accounts of sabotage, an attempt to overthrow the government. Nelson would spend 27 years of his life behind those bars. 27 years later, when he was released, he not only went to finish the fight against the apartheid, but to make history while doing it. Nelson Mandela was also a firm believer in democracy. Nelson Mandela changed how the government was ran and created a simple multi-board government to tackle many of the issues including taxes, poverty, and the ability of the healthcare services. These points of focus created a smoother, more civil government. This smoother government made South Africa not only a country for native races, but a country for all races. And this all began with a focus on democracy and the right to vote. The national party that controlled South Africa was steadily losing power as the Black Party began growing. As the Black Party began growing, the movement just continued to get stronger. With Nelson at the helm and his wisdom and massive support group, he found his way into a spot as a political symbol and began working towards a better South Africa. Once election became relevant, Nelson worked his way into office and began adjusting how things were ran within the country. That was how Nelson Mandela defeated the apartheid and how South Africa's modern government was formed. Lastly, Nelson Mandela was a supporter in the fight against AIDS. He would openly speak about the fight and the importance of treatment for those who needed it to live. His views on AIDS were so strong because his son, Magatho, passed away from the disease while being treated. This loss led to Mandela leading a fight to get treatment for those who need it. Mandela believed if everybody worked together, the people that needed treatment could live a longer, fuller life. To conclude, Nelson Mandela's ideas were very strongly respected, as his ideas alone changed the face of a nation over time. His ideas and beliefs in freedom, equality, and democracy place among a list of the few great leaders who led with dignity and pride, not only for himself, but also for his people. As the first black president elected, in the first election where blacks were able to vote, he spent his life fighting for his beliefs. In his own words, he said, "Real leaders must be ready to sacrifice for all freedom of their people."